Hi, I'm Kelly Smith. I'm a product manager at Oracle on the Backup and Recovery Solutions Technologies team. Today, I'm going to talk about avoid ransomware headlines, where you protect and recover with autonomous recovery service. Ransomware costs continue to grow. I talk to customers every day, and that's their number one concern. We can see here that we've an average cost of a ransomware data breach is reaching almost $5 million. On a global scale, they're predicting that ransomware by 2031 is going to cost $265 billion, and that's up from just $20 billion in 2021. So there's a huge growth in ransomware, and everyone has a huge concern. The Zero Data Loss Recovery Service is a solution from Oracle for the Oracle database. It's highly scalable and secure, and we focus on ransomware protection for the Oracle database on OCI, on Azure, Google Cloud, and AWS. Some of the key features that we have are zero data loss protection with fast recovery. We have enforced data encryption. We don't want the backup to become a transport mechanism for ransomware or for that malicious user. We have continuous anomaly detection and validation to make sure your backups are good. Backup immutability is also very important. These malicious actors understand that if you can easily go back and restore, they can't compromise you. So we have immutability and retention lock to ensure the backups can't be deleted or tampered. And then, of course, there's separation of duties. You want to make sure that a single account doesn't impact your ability to retain your backup. The database backups are also logically air-gapped between the customer tenancy and the Oracle managed tenancy. So the backups themselves actually don't live in your customer tenancy. We put those in an Oracle managed tenancy for safekeeping. And finally, if you have compliance requirements for long-term retention, the recovery service can keep backups for up to 10 years. Now let's talk about 3 key principles to protect your data from ransomware. The first is minimizing data loss. You have to think to yourself, if you had a ransomware attack right now, how much data would you lose? When was your last backup? Was it 15 minutes ago? Was it an hour ago? Was it last night? That's a lot of data that could be compromised. Next, you need to safeguard your backups. Can your backups be altered or deleted? These malicious users know that your backups are your safeguard, and you need to make sure that they're protected. And then finally, you need to monitor that protection. Do you really know if you're protected? You need to know as a user that your backups are protected and that they're ready for recovery. So let's go through these one at a time. First, we're going to start with enabling real-time protection for the database. And what that's going to give you is 0 to sub-second recovery capabilities. So if your database was attacked right now, you can immediately go to the sub-second before that attack occurred and recover your database. So let's see how to do that. Let's enable real-time protection for the Oracle database. Start on the database management page, click the Configure Automatic Backups button. You'll see under the configuration for automatic backups, there's the real-time data protection option. Simply select that box, save changes. This will update the database configuration to allow real-time protection to be enabled for the database. So now my database has been updated for real-time database protection. It's been a few minutes, so the data loss exposure attribute has caught up, and you can see that now I've got less than 2 seconds of data loss exposure. This is a database that doesn't have a lot of transactions happening, so there's not a lot of activity happening on this database, which is why my data loss exposure is 2 seconds, because there's just no transactions. But in a database that's more active, this number would decrease. So now that you have real-time protection enabled, you're protected up to the latest sub-second. Next, let's move on to safeguarding your backups. So by safeguarding your backups, what you're essentially going to do is you're going to retention lock those backups in the policy configuration that you have for your database protection. This prevents backup deletion prior to the expiration date. It also prevents anyone from lowering the retention period for your backups. Let's look at retention locked policies. Retention lock is only available in a custom policy. So the first thing we have to do is create a protection policy. We give it a name. We specify the number of days of retention that we want to lock in place. This is the option that locks the retention. So that enables the retention lock. The lock schedule has to be in the future because once it's locked, I can't delete any backups from that policy. So I'm going to select April 4th as my retention lock time. This gives me an opportunity to experiment with the policy, put databases in, take databases out, and see how it works in my environment. So now I simply create the policy. The policy will get created in my protection policy list. And now I simply go to my database and apply the policy. And this works if I've already configured backups for my database, or if I want to change the protection policy for a database I've already configured. So I've got my database. I go back to configure automatic backups. I change my policy. Notice that it now says retention lock is enabled. So I know that this is a policy that has retention lock. I save changes. Now all the backups that I create for this database are not going to allow their retention attribute to be decreased below the 27 days. I can always increase it, but I can't decrease it. I also can't take this database out of this protection policy once the lock is enabled. So on April 4th, as I chose. Now let's go back to the policy after it's been locked and attempt to turn down the retention period. So I'm changing it from 27 to 26. And I attempt to update. Look, there's a message that blocks me from doing that because I'm only allowed to increase the protection period. This will ensure that the backups that I created can't be deleted prior to this retention period. Now retention lock is enabled, so you've safeguarded your backups. Your backups are immutable and the retention period can't be reduced. So now let's move on to monitoring protection. So in this case, we're going to be setting alarms in OCI that will monitor your data loss exposure. And data loss exposure is simply the time since your last backup. And if that time grows too large and passes your threshold, an alarm will be sent out to the specified users that you identified in the alarm configuration. So let's see how to do that. Creating an alarm is done in the monitoring section of OCI under alarm definitions. So we're going to create an alarm specific to the recovery service. We have to give the alarm a name. So I'm going to do data loss exposure too high. I'm going to monitor the entire compartment. So that means that any database in this compartment is going to be leveraging this alarm. So we'll do the recovery service, data loss exposure. I'm going to trigger the rule if data loss exposure goes higher than 30 seconds. And then I need to set up a notification. So obviously, I'm going to save it in this compartment. I already have a topic set up to email my database admins. So I'm going to select that. So now the notification will be sent out to the database admins if the alarm goes over 30 seconds. So that I just save this alarm. So there's my alarm. Now, if the alarm is triggered, I will get an email because I'm part of the database admins group. And the email will look like this. It says there's my subject database or data loss too high. There's my 30 seconds. And it tells me the information about the database. So this is the database that has the exposure that's too high. So I can go in and investigate this particular database. Now you have alerts configured for data loss exposure. If that threshold you configured is crossed, your DBAs will be alerted and can take appropriate action. Now let's talk about some key takeaways. Ransomware breaches can be devastating. I've talked about monetary impacts, but there are also reputational impacts. Next, we've got the ability to keep your data safe with some unique capabilities that I've gone through here today for real-time protection, for retention locking your backups, and for alerts to make sure that you understand your data loss exposure. And then finally, the recovery service is natively integrated with the Oracle database services in OCI, Azure, Google Cloud, and AWS, which makes it a unique offering. Some opportunities to learn more about the autonomous recovery service. You can visit our website. We've got two blogs that talk about that introduce the recovery service and compare it to object storage, which is another common cloud architecture for protecting the database. And then finally, I've got three more demos you can go through, one for setting up database backups, one for monitoring your database backups, and then the third one for doing a database restore. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope this is valuable information for protecting your databases from ransomware.